It is my pleasure to introduce to you all our picture for the Halloween contest over here at Tutor.com. I didn't tell them I was doing this, so I apologize. But here we've got a great team behind our K-12 partners. So hopefully you recognize your customer success manager up on the screen for our Guess Who costumes that we submitted for Halloween this year. We're really excited to be here supporting each of you. Many of these folks are on the call. I know Kara wishes she could be here. And we're here to support you any way that we can. Just wanted to show you we had a little fun this year on Halloween, and we're all here just to kind of say hi, and it's good to see you all in one place at one time. We don't get to do this very often, so we're going to have some fun with it. What we've got teed up today is kind of a two-part situation. So we're going to try to split the hour 50-50. So the first 30 minutes will be focused on Tutor.com, and in particular, we're going to be looking into a way that a high school partner of ours has really worked our asynchronous essay drop-off into the fabric of their English department, and they're going to talk about the successes and the ways that that's come to be. Super interesting stuff there. I'm really excited for you all to hear it. We should have some time for questions there to ask our wonderful panelists there how she was able to make that program be so successful. And then right on the half hour, whenever that comes up, in whatever time zone you're in, I'm going to try to be time zone agnostic as I talk today. So I apologize if I slip up on that. I'm on Pacific time. So at 11:30 or whatever 30 minutes past the hour is where you are, we're going to switch gears a little bit and talk about the Princeton Review's test prep. So we've brought in a wonderful PD partner of ours who has actually been the one to train with a Princeton Review trainer and learn all the things about teaching our SAT material to her students. And so we're just going to talk a little bit about what that looks like, and again, hopefully have a chance to ask her some questions. So that's the plan. You are welcome, of course, to stay for the whole hour or just stick around for the part that most interests you. You're not going to hurt anybody's feelings here. That's how we've set this up. But we'd love for you to stick around for the whole time if you're able to, or we'll send out the recording afterwards as well. So without any further ado, I apologize, but we're going to do a couple of updates. While we have a captive audience, we couldn't miss up the opportunity just to share a little bit about what's going on over here at Tutor.com. This will be super fast, and then we'll get to the good stuff that you came here for, I promise. You may have noticed, or you probably haven't because we were a little sneaky about this, but we've made some very small improvements to the subject menu that your students see. This got rolled out last Friday, and I just want to briefly explain what we did and why we did it. We have changed the way that the menu appears, and I've got the drop down here, the new one. And so we remapped our subjects a little bit for a couple of different reasons. We have separated our English tutors into grade levels on the back end, so that we don't have the experience where a tutor might be expecting a third grader to have a thesis statement, for example. So they're going to be expecting the writing level of a third grader, for example. So we've broken up our elementary grades into K to 2 and 3 to 6. And in doing so, we have solved a problem that's come up a few times where people don't always realize that this first topic level menu is a drop down, and they'll think that all they have available to them is elementary grades. And that's not the case. They just have to click on it. But hopefully they'll realize that K to 2 certainly isn't all that they have available to them, and they'll be able to click on that and see all the other subjects that they have to choose from when looking for a live tutor. So no action needed on anybody's end there. Just wanted to let you know that that update is live and should solve some small issues that we've been experiencing. A second update, which is not as thorough yet. I know some of you that are on the receiving end of our newsletter have seen a teaser coming out about this. This is just another one. Coming in 2023, the early part, stay tuned to hear from some of us. And we will be reaching out about our new platform that's coming out. It's called Leo. It's Learner Engagements Online. And it's not just going to be an overhaul of what our platform looks like. It's going to introduce some new features that are pretty exciting. We're talking things like a teacher dashboard, some other things I don't want to get into too much because they're not quite ready yet. This is just a teaser. Stay tuned. We've got some really good stuff coming your way. And so be on the lookout for that in early 2023. And now our updates are over. We're going to get into what you're all here for, which is best practices. So again, starting off with our first section here, we're going to be talking about the Tutor.com's essay drop-off review. And so what this is, if you're not familiar or want a quick refresher before I introduce our guest here, it's a little different than our live tutoring in that a student can drop off an essay draft, and one of our writing tutors will take that draft, take a look at it, and provide some feedback to the student in 12 hours or less. So our writing tutors aren't really going in and fixing the essay, but they're providing actionable feedback to go in and improve it. That looks a lot like this rubric that you've got up on the screen here. So they're going to break out their feedback into different categories and give the student ways that they can improve their own writing. And so I have invited here today one of our partners who is really in the Dinuba High School taken this and run with it in a really interesting way. When we were talking about putting this panel together, I around the same time had a conversation with Chrystle, and I thought we have got to let her tell other people what she's doing over there because it is so cool. It's so interesting. And I can't wait for you to hear more about it. So let me introduce her and then we'll bring her on up. Chrystle is in her second year as an assistant principal at Dinuba High School. Prior to that, she was an English teacher herself for grades 7 through 12. During that time, she was a department chair, she was a grade level lead, a PBIS coordinator, a softball coach, and an activities advisor. So Crystle's done it all. She was nominated for Teacher of the Year for the Washington Unified School District back in 2020. And so we're so excited to have her here talking about her district's and high school's adoption of our Tutor.com asynchronous essay drop-off. So welcome, Chrystle.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
All right, shall we just go ahead and get started?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to show, before I ask you your first question, what really prompted this conversation that we had a few months ago, which is what is going on? Because I had pulled your students' usage and saw that such a large majority of your usage was coming from the asynchronous essay drop-off, which we don't typically see in our partners. And so we had talked about, you know, what you're doing over there. So I guess my first question to you is going to be, you know, what inspired this widespread use of our essay drop-off at your high school?
Yeah, so, this feature, this essay drop-off feature is unlike anything else out there. That's my school bell.
We're used to it.
But it's just another way to improve our students' writing without asking our teachers to do more heavy lifting. The reality is English teachers have some of the hardest jobs on a campus because of the importance of timely feedback. And it is very hard to grade 100 essays and give timely feedback, and especially in less than 12 hours. And that's what that essay drop-off feature has. Now, I really want to emphasize when Dinuba High School and Dinuba Unified adopted this resource, Tutor.com, I was not here. So the full credit in terms of getting it going goes to Gina Melkonian, who is our ELA academic coach and a former assistant principal here at Dinuba High School. But she really was the engine behind getting it going. And she found out about the essay drop-off feature and really started encouraging our English department to use it. And in so doing, she met with them. So she already had that rapport built with those English teachers. But she was able to really push it and get them going, of course. Because our teachers are under a lot of pressure. And so being able to remove the idea of giving timely, quick feedback to 100 plus students within 12 hours it's just a feat that's not possible for an average high school teacher. And so this really takes some of that stress off for our teachers, and it really just drives results and improves student writing.
Okay, so that leads me right into our next question, which is how did you go from that idea to doing it in practice? Like, how did you get the teachers on board and start to get the students using the service?
Yeah, and so really, again, I just always want to give credit to the right people. So Gina Melconian, she didn't want to be on here because
I
she's
know she
not
didn't.
that type. So, but she deserves all the credit. She had that rapport with the English teachers and got them using it. And then she offered, hey, I'll come in and I'll do a lesson with your students for you with every one of your periods. And we have 2,200 kids at our site. And so it's not like we're not a tiny site by any means. And so she offered to do that and got through every single classroom last school year at the beginning of the year. And so that really got the students using it. And then a lot of teachers said, hey, can you actually do it with the students, having them submit an essay in class? So she had them do that. And so it went so well. It was so successful. The teachers were really liking what was going on and what they were seeing in their students' writing, that during their summer PD, so their professional development and planning for the next year, this last summer, our teachers decided, our English teachers said, hey, we want to incorporate this into our grading. And we want every single essay to go through this essay drop-off feature because it improves their writing, makes their job easier. And they just adopted that as a standard. We are going to submit all of our students' essays through that. Students get a portion of their grade just from submitting it, which again, is just improving their writing. They're getting that feedback. And what I love about it, of course, is it reduces that anxiety for our kids. We have a lot of kids that are scared to ask for help, even though we offer after school tutorial. This is a person behind a screen, which can be a lot more comfortable, and they get that feedback and they can improve their writing. So really it was that commitment that we were going to do this going forward. Also because I love seeing so much of what was going on with it, and really wanted to make sure our new teachers, when they were coming on board, they learned about it. We organized sessions with Kelsey and with some amazing Tutor.com reps to do mini PD sessions on the service with our new teacher support group, with our lunch and learn activities, which is for all of our lead teachers, so they could learn the service. That was even last year we were doing that. So really getting our teachers on campus familiar with the service and how it works. I think that really made the big difference.
Yeah, that's really interesting because I think speaking from the tutor.com perspective, we talk a lot about, we call it fingers on keyboards, which is going into classes and having the students do a problem live with the tutor so that they can see that the live tutors are friendly and see where to click and how easy it is to get onto session. But I don't think we talk enough about using the essay drop-off fingers on keyboards and having students in class on devices actually throw a draft into the queue for our essay drop-off. So I think it's really interesting that your school kind of came to that organically.
Yeah. And, obviously to do that, you have to have someone in like an academic coach role or an administrator that, has that flexibility with their schedule. Not like an ELA department lead, obviously, but to go in there and facilitate those lessons where students actually get to drop off the essay in class. Because there are some, minute details that the average teacher may not be familiar with. And so she walks them through it. Students get familiar, teacher gets familiar. It's a win-win. So with that, we're just, all of our essays for our campus go through this program.
Okay, and since you instituted kind of this, every essay goes through it, you talked a little bit about this, but I'm curious to hear like what feedback in particular you've been hearing bubble up from teachers or from students about using the service.
Yeah, so our teachers really love it. It is a win-win for our teachers. As a former English teacher, I did a lot of one-on-one feedback with my students, and it is very time extensive, and it is almost impossible to turn around essays at this. This is just giving you like, here's some free teachers, and you can get these essays done right away, and get these kids timely feedback so they can improve their writing before that final draft, which is what our English department does. And so they really like that. The final work is just remarkably better from having gone through this process. Of course, are there bumps in the road like any school? Absolutely, because we have students that will skip that step and they lose out on points. But we're really trying to show the value to them through using the service and everything. So their essays are obviously easier to read naturally for a teacher, so they really like the program. What I love about tutor.com is, and it's funny because we get the monthly report, and I always take the time to really like read that monthly report, our usage report. And I really love in particular to read the comments that our students leave. So they're always asked for feedback on how the session went. Number one, our students rate it really high during their sessions for helping them improve their grades. Would they use it again? Would they recommend it to a friend? Those numbers are all up in the 90% range. So they're very, very high on recommending this service and using it again. But what's really fun is to read the actual comments they leave. So one of my favorite comments a student left was a couple of months ago, and they said, I quote, this is just too funny. Give Peggy a raise. Good Lord, I didn't know anything, but now I do. I mean, if that's not perfect, I mean, you took a student who didn't know what they were doing and now they can do it. I mean, good Lord, give Peggy a raise. These are high school students, so you can appreciate the humor. And then I had another student I read that said, the file actually answered all the questions. So this is an essay drop off. The file actually answered all the questions. I hesitated to ask, but overall, I'm confident I can finish my assignment. That is so impactful. The idea that, especially in this day and age when kids' anxiety and stress is high, they may not feel comfortable asking, especially in a classroom environment. This gives them the opportunity to do so in a low stress way. And to get a student that wasn't confident or comfortable asking to now where they feel confident that they can finish the assignment is just amazing. That's why the kids love it.
That's so cool. Thank you for sharing that. I hadn't picked up on those two comments from the students. Way to go, Peggy.
Yeah,
And way to go,
Peggy.
students getting the help that they need. That's awesome.
Yep.
That's really great. I'm going to move to our next question here, which is along the same vein. I just wanted us to have some prompts to really be able to talk this through. Actually, I think we might have gotten there. Is there anything you wanted to add on just impacts in learning? You said the quality of the writing coming through had really improved.
Yeah, I mean, overall, students are happy using it. They're seeing improvement in their own writing. Teachers are seeing that improvement. Last year to this year, our ELA scores went up another 5 points. Now, I don't want to say that's 100% tutor.com. I think we have some of the most amazing English teachers on our campus, and other departments as well support the writing process and reading process in their classrooms. So I want to make sure they get most of the credit, right? But I do feel like this plays a role in that because, in the state testing, they have to be able to write an essay on the spot. And this is a really great tool. It's just going to help improve their writing because they focus mostly on the things that really matter on that rubric, like the organization, and so forth, and, incorporating evidence and elaborating on it. Those are the real key points of the essay drop-off feature that we know also make a huge difference on state testing. So we've seen that remarkable change. Like any other school, we've seen learning loss at Dinuba High School as well. And so this is just helping support getting our students back caught up. And in our case, it's really exciting to see that, at least from a score place on an ELA testing, they haven't had that learning loss, which is really fantastic. We're very excited, and all of the credit goes to our ELA teachers. They're a fantastic department.
They definitely are. I've had the pleasure of, chatting with some of them, and they're definitely the cream of the crop. Okay, last question I have for you, and then we might open it up to some of our attendees. What advice would you give to someone who might be listening to you and thinking that they would like to implement kind of a similar scale of use of the drop-off service?
Well, first of all, do it. If you don't have a service, you need to. Your teachers will thank you. I cannot say that enough. Your teachers will thank you because it dramatically improves the students' writing. It's one more person that's going through giving them feedback that's specific to their writing, which you can't do enough as an English teacher. Secondly, I would say that, you do need to find someone who can be an expert to kind of motivate the usage of it in the classroom. So in our case, we had this amazing academic coach that was a proponent for the service, and to go in there and really do the lessons with kids where they physically dropped off the essay in Tutor.com while in the classroom. And that's where Tutor.com has been so awesome with their resources. We just had a PD with our math department, also walking through the process of how can they use, the Tutor.com service directly in the math classroom to help get the math department going. Because we've been picking on them a bit like, hey, most schools have higher usage in math, not ELA. So we've been trying to motivate them a bit. But the point is, through doing that, you really need to have an expert that can kind of push that can come in and take a little bit of that load off of your English teachers and who knows how to use the feature. And so Gina did a great job with that. I would say as a department, you have to kind of agree to incorporating this into your grading practices and in your feedback practices at your school to really see the difference. And that way you're really comparing apples to apples, like when you're meeting as a grade level and looking at data from your students and outcomes, you want to be able to say all these students went through tutor.com with the essay drop off. Let's say how it changed their writing scores. So I recommend having expert. I recommend having those lessons with those students. And then, you know, of course, I really like that usage report. So encouraging your students your teachers, when they are seeing these improvements in usage and everything and thanking them for committing to using the product. I mean, it's a great resource and you want to recognize the teachers for making it a priority in their classroom and with their students.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing that. At this point, I apologize again. I don't think any of our attendees have the powers to unmute, but if you've got a question that you would like to ask Chrystle, please feel free to put that in the chat and we'll make sure that she has a chance to see it. It's so awesome the way that this has really taken off and found a way to support your students. And I just love seeing the usage reports come in every month too, because it really has taken hold. And I'll go ahead and show the last slide that I had created. I didn't catch the Peggy comment, but I did pick some comments that your students had left on their essay drop off. And I just want to share those with you and with the crowd here. These are unedited comments that your students have said as a response to their essay drop off. And I just think that it's really impactful to see what they have to say about it.
Yeah, that is fantastic.
Any questions out there for Chrystle? Or just in general about how this all works?
Hi, this is Erica. I do have the the opportunity to unmute,
Of
so I
course
thought
you
I
do.
should
Hi,
go for
Erica.
it. Hi. Wow, that sounds amazing. My question is I'm looking at you have a couple 12th graders on here. What is the is there an opportunity for students when they leave high school, then this isn't about necessarily in school, but to have this available to them when they're in college, like on a one-on-one? Can students sign up, you know, to just with tutor.com to have this? Because having a child going to college next year, this would be amazing.
Right. I know you've got one at home.
home.
Yeah, so we do, Erica, that's a great question. We do partner with some higher education institutions. So depending on where your kiddo ends up, I'll let you know if that happens to be a partner of ours, because then they would have access to the same resources and more, which would be great. We do have an individual subscription model that could work, but we tend to do most of what we do through partnering with institutions. In large part because of the value of the reporting that we're providing back to the institutions, you know, about what students are looking for help with, when they're looking for help, what subjects, what time of day, things like that. Our partners really tend to be interested in that data. So we don't do a lot of marketing or outreach or things like that of our individual product, but it exists. So we can talk about that in your kiddo later if you want. Any other asynchronous essay drop-off questions out there? Okay, well, let us know if there are. We're running just a few minutes ahead of schedule, which is a great place to be. Just want to thank you so much again, Chrystle, for agreeing to come on here and share your experience with us. It's so awesome what's going on over at the high school with your students in the English departments. I'm really glad that we had a chance to share that.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm always excited to share, you know, the amazing things that our English department and our academic coach are doing. I cannot take credit. I just oversee that department. I really want to emphasize that because I think, you know, it's really about the people. And I just, you know, remind and I come in and support. And, you know, recently we've been talking with our English teachers that I support about how they could further use this feature, which is, to help kind of group kids after they go through that initial draft. If this one has issues with organization, and maybe this one didn't quite understand the prompt and therefore didn't fully answer, this one has elaboration issues or using evidence. And so that in itself, if a teacher is able to, get that feedback and then be able to group them and then give small group instruction based on their needs to, again, further develop it, is really going to make all the difference for our students and our teachers. It's taking that heavy burden off of them, things that they've always had to do in the past, and just, again, improving students' outcomes. So we're really excited, and anytime I can share about the great things they're doing, I want to do it. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much again. And with that, just a couple of minutes early, we will shift gears to the second part of our presentation that we've set up. So we're going to be shifting away from talking about Tutor.com and all the resources that we provide there, and put on the Princeton Review hats and enter the wild world of test prep, which is always a fun time. So we're going to be talking about the best practices for a particular part of our test prep offerings, which is going to be our teacher-to-teacher PD programs, where a teacher at the school will come in and do the training with some of our master trainers, and go forth and teach their own students. And so for this, I'm going to call in a guest star on our side first to just talk a little bit about the products. So Denisha, if you wouldn't mind jumping on and sharing with everybody exactly what it is that we're going to be talking about before I invite on our next guest.
I don't know if I'm that much of a guest star, but I'm here to help.
Yes, you
So,
are.
so with our professional development programs, these are really a way for schools to utilize the great teachers and the great resources they already have there, right? So, in our PD trainings, schools will send teachers to train with our highly experienced master trainers in SAT, PSAT, ACT, TSIA, and SHSAT, all the acronyms, right? So during this training, this really allows teachers to get some really bird's eye view of what it takes to put on a Princeton Review course, as well as the strategies and techniques that we teach to students every day. This allows schools to really be able to use their teachers to help their students prepare for these really big tests during their regular school day, during after school programs. Some schools even will allow teachers to do this on the weekends, but it's really putting the flexibility of schedule and the opportunity to learn from, or for students to really learn from teachers and professionals they already know, right? In this training, of course, they're going to learn the strategies and things like that, but they're also going to understand the tools that we provide to them. Oftentimes, with some of our test prep partners, sometimes they'll find that we really need to do an in-depth look at the tools that students are given. And this allows the teachers that work with these students every day to really understand not only what the student is going to see and how the student is going to learn, but also from the administrative view, get a kind of bird's eye view of what's going on in their classroom with some of our word class programs. So Kelsey, if you don't mind hopping to the next slide, we'll show you how that happens, yeah? So teachers will go through a total of up to 24 hours with our instructors. And these instructors are teachers who have been teaching for the Princeton Review for years. They have a multitude of experiences working with students as well as working with other teachers, right? To help them really understand how to teach these Princeton Review strategies, right? In that training, teachers will get access to the student kit, so they'll see what students actually get to see. They have 365 days of access to the Princeton Review's teacher portal as well, which gives them access to things like syllabi, as well as training videos, And they will continue to have access to those trainers that they've worked with so that as they get into the classroom with these students, if they come across a question maybe they hadn't thought about during their training, or, sometimes students are really clever and really inquisitive and can throw something at you from left field. So they always have that team of experts to come back to should they have questions. I did speak a little bit about that student kit and what students do have access to. So along with the teachers getting training, we also provide kits to students for those teachers to be able to teach from. So those are SAT, ACT manuals, or whatever respective test they happen to be working on, up to about 4 practice tests that are given to students. But they also have access, or students also have 365 days of online student portal access, which allows them to have access to drills and practice tests that are really, really helpful for them. During those drills, these are things that teachers can assign. We know teachers have a lot on their plate every day, right? So one of the great things about these drills, we have many of our partners who will assign these drills, and they're already graded through that administrative dashboard. Teachers are able to easily see at a glance what their students are doing, what concepts they're understanding, what concepts they might need a bit more help with. So let's talk a little bit more in depth about the student portal and some of the student pieces that come. So with the student portal, like I mentioned, they do have access to full length practice tests. If some of you all came a little early, you might have heard Kelsey and I talking about the changes coming to the SAT in the coming years where they're moving digital. So students do have the opportunity to, yes, take paper and pencil tests like they will experience in the next year, but they also have some opportunities to take an online version of the test a little bit early so that they can start getting used to answering these types of questions and using these strategies, um, but in a computer setting or on a computer, right? As students go through, these are all full-length practice tests that we work directly with the respective owners of these tests to create so that we give students as accurate an experience as possible. But, you might be saying, okay, so they take these practice tests, then what do you do with them? Well, this is where that administrative dashboard that teachers who experience the PD really get access to. So they do that by getting access to the reports and the coursework that comes about. So you pop to the next slide, you'll see some of the reporting data and some of the reporting information that students will have access to. The first is that it's going to track how students are doing. We do recommend, and many of the teachers who go through the PD training know that we recommend students are taking practice tests as they're going through and learning these strategies. And this allows students to see how they're improving and what areas of opportunity and areas of focus might really be essential. So it's going to track what's going to happen, not just per student, which will happen in the individual student portals, but also in the administrative dashboards as well that teachers who experience the PD will have access to. So in that administrative dashboard, it will allow you to see on a more broad scale what the classes are doing. And then on a more in-depth view, it allows you to go a bit deeper into seeing what students are experiencing on a day-to-day basis, right? So you'll see, for example, what are the top 5 most missed questions that students are doing? What happens to be the top 5 most skipped questions? Sometimes they're the same, sometimes they're not, right? But the great thing about the student portal is it allows students and teachers to be able to dig in deeper on the concepts and specific questions that students might need to be making improvements on. So they'll see direct explanations, right? And say, a teacher in this PD understands that maybe their students might not be doing well when it comes to the SAT verbal on stop and go punctuation. Well, from there, they can go into the coursework tab and assign drills for those students to do. It comes with lessons. The teacher also has syllabi and strategies to be able to help with those pieces, right? And then it automatically grades those drills and those lessons that those students are doing so that you can, again, at a glance, know what's doing. Again, because we understand teachers have a lot on their plate, and this is just one way to make this process a bit easier. Yeah. So it provides a lot of flexibility, not just for the student, but also for the administrators as well as the teachers. So that's my little spiel there. And without further ado, I'll push it back over to Kelsey and our lovely panelist who's going to talk a little bit more about how they're using it at their school.
Thanks, Dee. Yeah, so we're going to bring her right on up. I do want to say I'm so sorry. I had all my notifications locked down. I did not realize that the chat was disabled. I turned it on. So if you do have any questions for Chrystle, we'll have time for those at the end too. So sorry that I disabled those. It was certainly not my intention to silence anyone on this call. But let's bring it on over. We've got our fabulous Erica Young here. And she's going to be talking to us about her experience with the professional development test prep program. So she has been in Crested Butte for some time. She's been teaching for, I'm not going to say how many years, but I think right now, 4th grade is the one. She's got a master's degree in elementary education from the American College of Education, and she, more than anybody I know, is just really committed to lifelong learning. And I'm so excited to bring her on here to share this experience with you all.
Oh.
Hi.
Well, thank you for having me. Yes, I'm a big fan of the training that I received. So I'm really excited to share it with anybody who is interested in building their students' confidence in the SAT or ACT.
So let's start at the beginning. Why did you seek out SAT prep resources from the Princeton Review in the first place? How did this all get started?
So Crested Butte Community School, our district, we live in a really rural area. Crested Butte Community School is a K-12 school. And then we have one school, which is the Gunnison School, which is 30 miles away. And so Jennifer Reed, just like Chrystle was giving kudos to the person who organized, Jennifer Reed is our college counselor, and she has been partnered with the Princeton Review for many years, but it's always been online boot camps. So 2 Sundays before the April SAT, we would have 2 3-hour virtual trainings for the kids. And I had an upcoming junior a couple of years ago who is now a senior. And so I was really interested in what I wanted in-person test prep for Charles. And Jennifer is like very A-type and very organized, and she researches everything. And she was like, Princeton Review is the best. It's the best. This is what we need. So I wanted to learn more about it. And the Princeton Review allowed me to join as an administrator on one of their online classes, one of the boot camp classes. And the administrator was wonderful. The Princeton Review teacher was great, but there were 40 kids or 35 kids all in the chat. You know, she's trying to talk about like why this isn't an appropriate language to use, you know, why it's not exactly what they're asking, and all the answers are there. And in the meantime, you've got kids on the sideline, like, what are you doing tonight? You know, asking questions. And so the conversation was not really focused on that. And my son has dyslexia. And I knew that this was not going to be the best training for him if he was going to get anything out of some support for training for the SAT. And so we spoke with Keisha, who is amazing, your partner at the Princeton Review, and we worked together so that I was able to train to take the class from you all to train to be a test prep provider. And because we live in a really rural place and it was COVID, my training was online. And so we had, I can't remember, it was 2 summers ago, it was either 5 days at 4 hours each or 4 days at 5 hours each. And Do you want me just to continue talking about? Like
Yeah,
that?
you're doing great. I'm not
Okay.
going to interrupt. Don't let me
Okay.
get in the way.
No. And so
That was my next
I did
question.
this. Pardon?
That was my next question. What was your experience like? So
Okay,
you're,
well,
you're
we're
doing
rolling
great.
with it. It was amazing. And I have told Kelsey this, that in my 22 years of teaching, it was hands down the best PD I've ever attended. I mean, Ken was our instructor, and I think I had 8 other teachers from all over America. And I know that you've done online training with people out of the country as well, but it was so good and so thorough. And I am not a fabulous test taker. I always thought I wasn't. And there's so many great things you take away from it, but a really big one is that, is this test beatable? Yes, it is. It is all in front of you. And there are so many little tricks and, like the universal strategies that if you have POE and process of elimination, and you have personal order of difficulty, or you have letter of the day, I mean, you're just winning points. And these kids, gives them such an advantage. And had I had that, so I was super excited about it. And I would recommend any of you that want to help kids in your school, get an upper hand, which it's kind of an unfair thing because some kids don't get that. And if you have an opportunity to give it to your students, it was the best. I mean, I should be like a spokesperson for you because I really believe in it. And so then we move on to what happened.
Yeah, that's, what's coming up next.
She gave me these 3 questions. I was thinking about them, but we talked on the phone, and I was basically like, okay, I'm really excited. What was teaching like? Okay, so then the next year, and there are lots of, in fact, all of the people on my training, they all had an SAT or an ACT class in school, like Denisha was talking about earlier. And if you can push for that, which I am pushing for that, to have even like 2 days a week, so it's consistent and they're learning, because you teach them these strategies, but they have to practice it. You can't like, oh, I just gave you the answers to how you're going to go in and ace this. It is practicing it. It is, you wouldn't just show up to the soccer game. You would be practicing all week, and then the skills. So when you sit down and these kids sit down and they're all anxious, that it's a natural thing for them to, work through the strategies. But our school doesn't have that. And so we provided, last year, we did a 6-week, 2.5-hour course. So we were going off the 15-hour syllabus, and that was the intensive. And we had 15 kids for that. And then we had the boot camp, which was the 2 weekends, 2 weeks before the April SAT. And we had 40 kids for that. So we had 55 students attending this outside of school hours, and there's 62 kids in the class. So like they want it, they want the support. And it was amazing. I mean, my son did the boot camp and he did the intensive with us, and his scores, they say there's just so many wonderful things from Ken and Henry, who is also there for any technical support, to like, well, how do you answer questions to parents who are like, well, they're taking this, now we want them to have this grade, and what's realistic. And it was just, there's so many wonderful things about it. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, you touched on a few interesting points I'd like to go back to,
Sure.
because I know we've got a lot of our California partners on the call who might have might have mixed feelings about the SAT and the ACT right now, which is totally valid. But the fact is there's still, quite a lot of financial aid still tied up in test scores. A lot of schools out of the state of California still require those scores. And a lot of students who identify as strong students might still have trouble taking these tests.
Right.
And so you really spoke well to what it is that we do here. We talked about this. I have a little bit of an SAT teaching background from a million years ago here as well. So I've been through some of the same things, but really just framing it, not as like a combative classroom experience, like the teacher versus the student, but it's really the whole class versus the test and how we can beat it together. So did you find that kind of vibe resonated well with your students?
Definitely. And they get this online prescription for a year. And I think being in person, being able to walk through their portal with them, And that last screen she showed, your step 3, the digging deeper, it's so amazing, because so you assign them to take, well, just take, let's just do the reading passages this week as homework. And then we can plug them in. They learn how to plug them in to the portal. And then it tells them that kind of bottom right of the screen said, like, this is the ones you got correct. And these are the ones that were incorrect. Yeah. Would you go back to that? And so you can see, so often the kids are like, well, they take the PSAT and they say, well, I got a 520 on this and a 630 on this. And so you think, okay, well then but they don't know where it breaks down. They don't know what parts, is it the algebraic parts that they're missing? Or is it, the quadratic equation or the linear or the not, like, what are and then the kids can actually click on the question, like that little X underneath the reading, click on that. It tells you what the question is. It tells you why the correct answer is correct. And then it supports you with, these are problems that you can practice. So it's just not this, like, these two random numbers and they don't know what to do with them, and then you're looking at, oh, well, the connecting questions. If those are the ones that you really struggle with, we can practice those. And the instructor, Ken, he was great, because he said, well, if there's, and then there's another, that category section, you click on that and it says, there's 7 questions that are about vocabulary and there's 2 questions about meaning. That's not true. But so which one are you going to focus on? There's so many more of these questions. That's the skill that you really want to become stronger with. And so it just gives the kids this direction. And also it makes them they're not alone in it. Like you were just saying, like, it really doesn't matter if you're, a struggling learner or, you are a great test taker. When it comes down to it, they all want to do well. And yes, it is test optional in so many. I just put in the college app for my son, but the reality is that when it says test optional, if you have a good score, you're going to put it in, and schools know that. And every single point is scholarship money, and that's huge. It's expensive to go to college. So, yeah, I'm just going to see if I have anything else you were talking to Nisha. I was like, yes, all of those things. And the support that's provided since then. So that was 2 summers ago that I took this. I mean, Kelsey, you're amazing. Keisha's amazing. I can be like, can you ask Henry? You have the training videos. I have those. If I needed something else, like, there is just so much support. And a lot of these kids take it junior year, and parents want their, which is smart, because they finished algebra 2, hopefully. And so then they're able to start it, but you have a year. And so they can continue to take it. I mean, there's kids still taking, this weekend, there's another one on Saturday that lots of these kids are taking, because 5 more points, it means something if you're putting those scores in. And so and any of you can reach out to me, because I lived it and I was like, oh God, I'm not spending my summer doing a training. It was the best.
Can I ask you a question I didn't prepare you for,
Sure.
which is, did the virtual training that happened in our online classroom with our trainer and the different trainees across the country,
Yep.
did you feel like that prepared you well for teaching the class in person to your students?
Totally. And because I was just sit and focus, and it's funny because I wasn't in a classroom, and I am definitely an in-classroom learner. I'm taking a QuickBooks class right now, and I'm going to the college to take it because I want to be in class. But the online, it was great. And there's so many resources on there. So, and I can email Ken, or I can email Henry and say, what is the part about, where can you tell me where that is in our training? And they're like, day 4, this is where we talked about it. And you can review it. I mean, you have that for a year to go back and rewatch. So for me, it wasn't, I just got the training, then I left, and I felt really strong in there, and then I leave, and then I don't know what to do next. You're provided with all of that training to go back and review. And then I just felt really like, oh yeah, I've been doing this for ages, I felt really confident. Fake it till you make it. But no, it was wonderful. And our students, that whole group felt really confident. And so I'm pumped for this year.
Yeah, that was my next question. So I know we did some of those courses last year. You've got some more coming up this year. And you had your own son's official score to look at, but did you have your finger on the pulse for any other impacts of the course in terms of confidence or more concretely with scores?
We did. Jennifer took all of the PSAT scores, and because kids are still taking them at Christmas when there's kind of going to be the cutoff because a lot of December 1st, it's rare that they'll be still trying to take more to go into because college apps are in, and we're going to do a full breakdown, which I'll share with you. But I mean, just like the kids in the hallway, it's that like they get the scores and they're Miss Erica come running like, I went up 60 points. I went up like there's some really wonderful, and that's not because of my class. I know that, but because they put the work in with the tools that you all provide. And yes, that's exciting. And we are going to do, because we had that last year, we have lots of siblings because obviously we all go to the same school. And so many parents have reached out, which is why I had reached out and said, if we might teach a fall class now instead of just in the spring, because we usually teach the intensive in February, March. And I think moving forward, we probably will do something in the summer and something in the fall, because parents are just wanting it at different times, and to give the kids that full year, which I'm sure they could continue if they needed it more or whatever. But yeah.
That's great. And, honestly, your students are so lucky to have you, because we, prior to the pandemic, had a lot of our instructors on the ground in a lot of different places where we could send a teacher to a school and teach a class during the school day. But many of our test prep partners on the call know that we've lost some of those teachers just through the course of attrition when they weren't able to do that in-person work.
Right.
And so to have the ability to have someone kind of that belongs to the school to go on and learn how to do the strategies and such and teach the class, I think is just really, really valuable, because a lot of students still do learn better in person.
And that's the thing, is that we actually, I have another colleague of mine who I'm trying to actually just figure out when he can do, because it would be an online training, because having two people is so valuable, because then I'm not the only adult, and I could say, well, Mike, what do you are magical at that, and sit back. And we don't have all the answers, and the kids, they're wicked smart, they know these things. They're like, well, I don't understand why, because it says this. And just being like, well, you're dropping actually everything we've taught you in high school, and you're not supposed to infer, and we don't want you to bring any real background knowledge. It is all there. It's all in front of you. And for a lot of kids, that is super soothing, because they think, oh, I don't have a lot of background knowledge on the history of the Civil War, whatever the passage is about. And so learning those things, I say get as many people trained in your school, because it's really valuable.
So we'll file that under advice for this last question that I wanted to ask, was if anybody's out there who has been doing something online and is maybe thinking about some of the teachers in their purview that might be great candidates for this, do you have any advice for someone who might be interested in going through a training and teaching our material to their students in person? Besides just have as many teachers as possible.
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I thought you were asking everybody.
I don't know.
So ask me again then, because I was just waiting to hear a response
Oh
from
yeah.
somebody else.
No, I mean, just if anyone's thinking about going through what you went through, would you have any advice for someone kind of starting out on that process?
I literally have not taken a standardized test. I just went to my 30-year high school reunion. And so in 30 years, and I felt really that I taught high school years ago, but I teach fourth grade now, and I've taught first grade, and oh, well, that's not really my wheelhouse anymore. And it totally is. And they teach you, it's like explicit and direct of what tools you can give these kids. And so don't be afraid of it, because I'm confident in supporting these kids. And so I would say that would be what my hesitation was, like, oh, I'm an elementary school teacher, these are high school kids, and you have the tools, and it's just believing in kids and saying, here are your tools, and it's what you put into this. And then you have some who are like, the book stays in the backseat of their car until they come to the next class. And you have kids who come in and like, I took the whole test and I did the bubbles and I went up in this, and that excitement, and it's magical. So just trust yourself, you can do it.
Live fearlessly. I think that's a great note to end on. That's my last question for you, Erica.
Thank
Again,
you for allowing me to be here. Thank you.
I'm going to see if anyone, now that I have enabled the chat, if anyone's got a question to pass on to you, or in the last few minutes, if anyone was sitting on a question for our earlier presenter, those are fair game now as well. Again, so sorry for that. Our online classroom doesn't have these quirks of Zoom. Your students, if they're ever in there, they'll never be silenced the way that I silenced you. I apologize. But any questions at all on either of these two kind of very different topics, but all in service of supporting our students, the middle school and high school level, as they're, just doing what they need to do to be ready for the next step. Can my teammates validate that the chat works now, please? I swear
It
I turned
does
it on.
work. It
Thanks,
does
Dave.
work.
There you go. I just want to say to all of you in California, it is dumping snow in Colorado right now. It is so cold and I'm so jealous. If you have sunshine and 72 degrees, enjoy a minute of that too.
I sure am.
I'll jump on out if you have a question for me, but thank you very much.
Okay, yeah. So,
Good luck,
well, thank
everybody.
you so
Do
much,
it.
Erica. Yeah, I'm not going to keep you on the hook here. Thank you so much to you and to Chrystle, and all of our partners for doing what you do for your students day in and day out. We're so honored to be a part of the support that you provide for them. And just grateful that you took some time out of your day to either attend this live or to be watching the recording later on. If there's anything we can do to help support, if you don't know who your customer success manager is, you can always reach the team at clientsupport@tutor.com and one of us will get back to you. We are always just an email or a phone call away. If you have any questions that come up, as you're talking amongst yourselves after this presentation, please let us know. We're here to do anything we can to help support your students.